So next, and this is kind of the final portion of this presentation today, but there's a few different terms that get passed around, and really there's three. So it's data backups, as I've mentioned, disaster recovery, and business continuity. So your backups are just the physical or in the cloud. It's the thing, it's the copy of the data. That's a backup. Disaster recovery is going to be what we are going to do in the event of an incident. What actions are we going to take to get you from, let's say, non-functioning to functioning? What are we going to do when the server crashes? What's the plan? How long does it take us to get the equipment? How long does it take us to get approval on whatever, quoting we need to get done? How long is it going to take us to install? And that all takes time, right? And no matter what the incident is that you're going to be getting through, whether it's hardware failure, cybersecurity, an employee accident or wrongdoing, all of these things are going to take time to resolve. And that's where business continuity comes in, because your business continuity is going to be the plans that you have in place so that you can keep running the business, you can keep seeing your patients, you can keep seeing your customers and clients, forgive me, but you can keep doing business, you can keep things running while that recovery is taking place. And that's what business continuity is about. So they're connected topics, but slightly different. So when it comes to business continuity, you really want to be asking yourself a few different questions. You're going to be asking, what steps will the team take for different incidents? And that's a little bit vague, but I think it applies both internally and externally. So you want to know, okay, what is my vendor doing in the event of this type of incident taking place? And then separately, what does my staff need to do? Okay, so if there was a ransomware incident and an employee of yours saw an alert on their screen that said, you've been infected with ransomware, what are they supposed to do? Do they contact you? Do they contact IT? Do they unplug their device? These are all questions that we want to think about, because unfortunately, and I hate to say this, but really it's a matter of when and not if an incident of some type is going to happen. So our best defense is to prepare. Second, we're going to say, what is your RPO, or recovery point objective? And really what that means is you're making a decision on the business level, and you're communicating to your vendors of how much data are we willing to lose, or not willing, but can we afford to lose in the event of an incident? And again, that could be 15 minutes, it could be an hour, it could be a day. And that's really going to impact how often you're doing your backups, because that's kind of how you resolve that issue. The third question is going to be, what is your RTO? And that's your recovery time objective. So that's similar, but it's about time. So that's going to be having those discussions with your vendors about, okay, this is how long we can afford to be down. Let's figure out how we can resolve something and have us back up and running in 4 hours. And then, on your end, it's, what do I do with my staff to keep things going during those 4 hours while my vendor gets me back up and running? And then, again, and it's kind of a similar thing, but what are the service level agreements that you have with your vendors? Every vendor that you use, you should have some type of a response, in writing. Well, what are the SLAs? If I have a critical issue, how long is it going to take for you to be touching it and looking at it? And then how long do you promise that it'll take, or how long are you willing to allow before it's resolved? And then that's for any number of vendors. It can be for your IT vendor, it could be for a lab at your office, it could be for a printing partner. At the end of the day, whenever anything isn't working or there is an incident, you definitely want to have it in writing, how quickly they're going to respond, and then how quickly they can resolve. So a lot of information there, a lot of different questions, but a lot of different questions I'm asking you to ask your vendors. But at that point, what questions do you guys have for me? So I see here, if I wanted to look into my disaster recovery solution and plan, how would I do that? Okay, so like I said, there's a lot of different questions, there's a lot of different things that you need to look at, and to be honest, I would say, number one, you want to work with a professional team, that specializes in disaster recovery, that understands the different solutions, and hopefully also understands your market, because like we talked about, different industries have different requirements, they have different objectives and needs. So for instance, again, at a medical facility, we've still got patients coming in the door, right? So if we had an incident, what are we supposed to do? Are we going to discontinue seeing patients? Do we need to have forms printed out? Those types of things. And I think that if you talk with somebody, number one, that you trust, and also an expert in the area, they're going to be able to understand your business and how disaster recovery is going to really fit into that. So honestly, I would say give us a call, or call whomever is your current IT vendor, and just say, I really want to sit down and have a conversation about what would happen if ransomware hit my office, and how we could recover, or what we would do in the event of a server failure. And I would also recommend that you get that stuff in writing. I would create a playbook. So it would be disaster recovery playbook with a couple of different scenarios that you would either just share with management or potentially the entire staff, because really it's about when something happens, responding quickly and getting it into the right hands.